Most people know, and if you don't know, we are in this series called Farewell Address. And what we did is I asked a bunch of the seniors who are leaving to come share what they've learned or their last testimony with us, something that they could leave us with. So McKenna kicked us off a few weeks ago. Last week, Nico shared from Waterbury, and it was fantastic. And then tonight, I asked Elias to come speak. And I want to just say what I have really come to appreciate about Elias. Who here has seen Braveheart? Right? When you think of William Wallace, you probably think of Elias, right? No? Okay. But when I think of a leader, I typically think of like that William Wallace character, like in the front of the crowd, rearing everybody up, getting them excited to charge into battle, right? That's one type of leader, sure. But what I've come to find out about Elias is that he is a leader, not like a William Wallace leader, but he's a leader because he has people that follow him. He's a leader because people come to him for advice, more than almost any student I've taught before. So I think that's really cool. And I've noticed that people will come to Elias to get advice or to hear what he has to say or something. And then what Elias does is he actually listens. Have you guys ever had a friend, maybe not even a friend, but someone who is talking and you can tell, like while you're talking, you can tell they can't wait for you to stop so they can just jump over you and just start talking. It's very frustrating. They're not fun to be around. Elias is like the opposite of that. When I talk to Elias, I'm telling him something, he actually waits and considers it, and then he actually will ask me questions about stuff. And I found that something I've really come to appreciate about you. And I found that Elias is a fantastic listener. And I give a lot of that credit to his mom, Carrie, who you guys all know, who helps get here. Also his dad, I'm sure. But I've come to really appreciate that about him, that he's a fantastic listener. And I think that he's become such a good leader because he actually listens to people. So I'd ask you guys to now listen to Elias and give him a big hand. Elias, come on down. Take it away.
We love you! So about a month ago, me and my friend Declan were partners in a game called Senior Assassin. For any of you who know how this works, essentially you are on a team of two, and you are assigned a team of two at the beginning of every week, and you have to assassinate them with water guns by the end of the week. One particular week, we weren't doing so hot. We weren't doing so good at all. We had one of them, it was approaching the end of the week, and we still needed to get one of our targets out. So around 11:30 on a Friday night, Declan texts me. He says, Elias, I think I know where she is. And I'm like, it's 11:30 on a Friday night, what do you mean? He says, check Instagram, there's a massive house party going on, and people are dropping like flies. And it became increasingly obvious he was asking me to go and get her, because obviously he didn't want to do it himself. So it was up to me. So I decided, all right, maybe I'll give this a shot. So I went upstairs and I asked my parents. My mom was skeptical, and she said that it was up to my dad. Long story short, I got the party 12. And I remember getting there to this massive house on a lake, and the street was lined with hundreds, not hundreds, 100 cars. I remember walking towards this house, and it was already one of the most interesting experiences in my entire life. A kid was trying to direct traffic, not in his prime, I'll say that. Kids were throwing up, I got hit on by a drunk person, and I saw someone calling their mom, begging for her to pick her up, and I had just reached the driveway. I hadn't even walked in yet. So I walk in. Luckily, I was able to rendezvous with two sober friends who were also there to get their targets out. And we went in, and man, it was an experience. I'll put it at that. However, when I was wandering through this party, surveying for my target, all of a sudden, I just stopped and paused. And I stopped focusing on where my target was, and I started surveying the room, just kind of taking in this new experience I had never thought I was ever going to experience before. And I saw a lot of things. Right? I had grown up with all these kids, and looking around, I saw a kid crying in the corner, more kids throwing up. The football kids were tackling each other blackout drunk in their yard. People were just throwing things around. People were making out on the couch, and everyone else was just stumbling around, saying whatever came to mind. But one thing stuck out to me out of all those things, and is that I saw fellow Christians partaking in these things. And it's no secret that just because someone says they're Christian, it doesn't mean they follow the walk. But these were people I had sometimes talked to, and they had shared their faith with me. And they were partaking in these events. And so that got me thinking, how did they get here? And reflecting on this, and reflecting on my years in school, it all comes down to the same conclusion that I've learned. While following Christ, community is important. And your community is very, very important. The world we live in, what it encourages isn't always what Jesus calls us to live by. In fact, the Bible says this in Galatians 5:16 through 17. So I say, live by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the sinful nature. For the sinful nature desires what is contrary to the Spirit, and the Spirit what is contrary to the sinful nature. They are in conflict with each other, so that you do not do what you want. If what you want is to follow the Spirit and follow the walk, we have to figure out ways to counter temptation and keep it at bay. Life is a journey, and we have many paths before us, but only one of those paths is the one Jesus wants us to walk. The world will tell us there's an easier path, there's a funner path. There's ultimately one true path that Jesus wants us to follow. And we're human. We're not going to be on that path 100% of the time. It's just unrealistic. However, one of these backup plans we have to keep on this path as much as we humanly can is good community. However, bad community can also steer you off that path. So community matters. Community matters for multiple reasons. The first one is that you become more like the people you hang around with the most. We don't take that into account a lot. It's commonly said that the five or six people we hang around the most outside of our family are the people we reflect, how we behave. Think about it. You're in your friend group, there's a common sense of humor, there's something that everyone considers fun, well, there's one bonding thing. And as Christians, we have to take note of this. In Proverbs 13:20, it says, "He who walks with the wise grows wise, but a companion of fools suffers harm." So we have to think of the 5 or 6 people you hang around the most, who you let influence you in your actions. Are these 5 or 6 people influencing you in a positive way? Do they make you a better person? Does it make you a better man or woman of God? Because I like to look and think about the Christians I saw at the party. The 5 or 6 people they hung around the most were probably not walking the walk. In fact, what they found fun was going to a party every Friday night. Just to think about this. There is no Christian community to fall back on almost. So, what probably happened here was, in this friend group, this kid was the only Christian. And the other friends started to go out and party, and they said, you know what, I'm a Christian, this is not what I want to do, so I'm going to stay back and not do this. However, think about it. As humans, we want to fit in with our group. We want to be included. We don't want to feel like an outcast to the people we consider the closest. So, think about it. They came back, and now all their friends have this one common experience, the same thing that they find fun. And maybe they felt like they were missing out. And so what happens is we begin to compromise on what we believe. And the thing about that is that when we start to compromise, we have to be careful because we can open doors that are very hard to shut if we don't have anything to fall back on. Once you open a door, it's open. So the process of compromise in this scenario could have been like this. Well, I'll just go to this. I'll just observe. It'll be fine. But then you're there. Everyone's doing the same thing. And you think, well, maybe if I do it this once, it'll be fine. Sooner or later, it just becomes something you do, and you just completely walk through the door. So think about this. Are the people around you living the way that you want to live? Proverbs 27:17 says, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. And this verse is saying exactly what it says. We rub off on each other. Our behaviors rub off on each other. So when you think about the 5 or 6 people you hang around the most, look for people that you feel you want to reflect. So think about this. Are your closest friends helping you stay on the path, or are they tempting you onto other paths? We have to know our personal limits. If you feel like the people you are constantly around are tempting you and holding you back from your walk with God, maybe you should prioritize and shift your main focus to those who help you walk with the Lord, because you become who you hang around. And our identity is also shaped by who we hang around. What we intake through them matters. The awesome thing about good community is that they're there to encourage you, they're there to support you. Are your friends supporting you? Because I've been in many friend groups in school, and there was one particular that never spoke life into me. So think about this. When you accomplish something, do your friends celebrate with you, or do they try to undermine you? When you're going through something hard, do they comfort you, or do they just abandon you? When you are stressed or worried, do they support you and encourage you, or do they belittle you and demean you? If you mess up, do they help you learn, or do they just tell you how awful you are? We value what those we consider close to us have to say, and oftentimes, if it's said enough, we believe what they say. Think of your closest friends. If the only thing they told you was how awful you were at something, would you believe them? Probably. A lot of our insecurities come from hurt caused by other people. And so think about this. If your core friends constantly demean you and make you feel small, it might be time to consider leaving those friendships. Because toxic friendships can truly act as a chain holding you down, growing as a person and in your walk with God. In order to walk forward, you need motivation. You want friends who encourage you, who support you, who are there for you, who speak life into you, not who take it. Another awesome thing about good community, especially if you're walking the path, Christian community, is that we hold each other accountable. We encourage each other and support each other. We're also there to call each other back when we go astray. Think about it. You're walking your path with your friends, and you start walking another path. You have a whole group of people that call you back, and a lot of them who are willing to run after you and pull you back. That's relieving to me. I don't know about you, that we have a support system, that if you choose to have a support system, it takes a lot of pressure off. It's still up to us, but we have people who love us and want to come and get us. However, sometimes, we're youth. That's our greatest strength and our greatest weakness. Sometimes, all of us, especially a friend group, maybe can wander off the path. They're there for support, however, we can't completely 100% rely on them. The support and advice our friends can give us can be great, however, we have to keep this into consideration. It's incomplete due to our lack of experience or lack of good experience. And so, a critical piece I found in sorry, my mouth is dry. A critical piece I found in Christian ministry. Don't worry. Okay. A critical piece I found in Christian fellowship is mental. I found that mentors are truly to be valued. Thank you. See? Brothers helping brothers out. This is what we're talking about. I found that Christian mentors help you so much in your walk. Because like I said, our friends are great. They offer support, they can offer advice. However, oftentimes we forget that the people older than us have gone through the same exact thing, and a lot of times been through the other side. We stick to our friends due to our comfortability. Comfortability and the fact that we think they're more relatable, which in many places can be true. We have to think. They've been through the exact same things we have. They've asked the same questions we have. And so letting an older men and women of God speak into you can really uplift you and keep you going on the journey. Especially because sometimes they see things our friends will not point out. Now, we have to keep into consideration, though, that everyone is in a different situation. Not everyone has adults in their life that they feel they can talk to. And I would like to say, we have amazing adult leaders in this room, and so let's give them a shout out right now. All of them are here for a reason. They're here for a reason. They're not just here to partake in youthful activities, they're here to help you guys too. And having those mentors can be really useful. However, we have to keep one thing in mind in Christian community when they rebuke you, and with mentors when they point something out. We have to be willing to be mendable and correctable. It's really easy for us to hear good advice and ask for advice, but it's less easy for us to take criticism, be pushed out of our comfort zone. Even if you disagree with them, keep into consideration, there's always room for improvement in our lives. We are held to a very high standard, in fact, an impossible standard. We're called to be like Jesus. The fact that we can never reach that implies there's always room for improvement. That's personally how I took that. And we always hear about refinement, that sometimes we need to switch out an old piece of us and put in a good piece of us and replace it with something fresh, something new. That's the whole trial by fire refining thing. And sometimes God uses other people to do that. Drink water too. One of my favorite tales about being teachable and correctable in Christian community is found in Acts. Acts 18:24-28 says, Meanwhile, a Jew named Apollos, a native of Alexandria, came to Ephesus. He was a learned man with a thorough knowledge of the scriptures. He had been instructed in the way of the Lord, and he spoke with great fervor and taught about Jesus accurately. Though he knew only the baptism of John, he began to speak boldly in the synagogue. When Priscilla and Aquila heard him, they invited him to their home and explained to him the way of God more adequately. When Apollos wanted to go to Achaia, the brothers and sisters encouraged him and wrote to the disciples there to welcome him. When he arrived, he was a great help to those who by grace had believed, for he vigorously refuted his Jewish opponents in public debate, proving from the scriptures that Jesus was the Messiah. One thing I love right off the bat about the story is that it tells us that Apollos was gifted. He spoke with fervor, he was knowledgeable, he taught about Jesus accurately, he was good at what he did. However, he was willing to be sat down by people older than him and be taught. He could have just told Priscilla and Aquila, you know what? Thanks guys, I know what I'm doing. He could have gone to Achaia, and he could have done a good job. But he allowed people to speak into his life. And ultimately, God honored him for that. He went to Achaia, and not only did a good job, he proved from the scriptures that Jesus is the Messiah to his opponents. And also, this says a lot about good community. His brothers and sisters encouraged him, and he was a great help to those who by grace had believed. So in closing, I want to ask you these three questions. Are the primary people you hang around tempting you from Jesus, or are they bringing you closer to him? Are the people in your life speaking life into you, or are they taking it from you? Are you allowing your community and mentors to reach you? Are you a teachable person? One last thing though. Oftentimes, it is very easy to look at everyone around you and what they are doing wrong. However, we need to use that judgment on ourselves as well. Are we the friend we would want to have? Are we the friend we would want to have? Think about it. People are making the same exact judgment about you. They're looking for a good community, good influences in their lives. So let's strive to be better people in God. And especially, I found from advice, this is also good for relationships, if you plan to be in one when you're older. How can you be the best person for that person? And most importantly, how do you be the best man or woman that God wants you to be? There is always room for improvement. Thank you.
We have known each other for coming up on 9 years now, right? You started, like, we met when you were in 56ers, right? We're coming up on 9 years and we've known each other. Yeah. And most of you guys as well, the other seniors who were up here, like, you guys came through 56ers, 9 years we've been hanging out. To stand back there and to hear you teach the things that you have been hearing for the last 9 years. It's just awesome to me. I have watched you grow physically, I have watched you grow emotionally, and I have watched you grow spiritually. I am proud to know you, to call you friend, to see what God is doing in you and through you. The questions that Elias asked, those were not just sort of rhetorical questions. Those were not just a sort of way to close his message, right? Those are questions that you need to wrestle through and answer for yourself. Think about what Elias just told you, because everything that he said is true. Nicely done.